All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. It is Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. First day of OTAs is in the rearview mirror. We were down there at Foxborough on Monday. We recapped that whole practice in whole with Taylor Kyles. So if you missed that, make sure you go check out that video. It is right on the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. So today, we have a little Q&A coming at you guys, and we have a little bit of Patriots news because we got an update on Cole Strange, so we will start there. But in the meantime, if you guys want to start putting some questions in the chat about OTAs, mini camp is coming up, training camp is 2 months away, or any other Patriots thoughts on your mind, you can start asking some questions in the chat we will get to. But we will start with Cole Strange because we heard from Maye on Monday. He was asked about him, and he said, he's week to week, or you can even call it month by month if you want. So you knew the news probably wasn't going to be good. And then on Tuesday morning, we heard from Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, and he said starting guard Cole Strange, who is still dealing with a significant knee injury, suffered late last season, is expected to miss the start of the 2024 season and may be out until the middle of the season. So again, kind of expected with the timing of it in December. I think it was week 14 last year, and then Mayo's comments. But it is looking like Cole Strange probably going to start the year on the physically unable to perform list. It might not even be back until midseason here with that knee injury.
Yeah, and it adds a lot of context to what this offseason has been. You know, we've talked about this a little bit, Brian, trying to read the tea leaves of moves they've made and things that have been said. And we've kind of at times settled on, hey, maybe they just don't believe in Cole Strange as much, this new coaching staff, as much as the old offensive coaching staff did, is his job in trouble. It seems like they're just outright he's not going to be able to play, regardless of ability. So it adds some context to what they've done, and that does now become one of the bigger position battles to focus on, especially if, we think City So is going to be at left guard, so it'll probably be a right guard, but now you have two spots on the offensive line that you have unsettled heading into the season. That's not great.
And it's the left side protecting maybe your number 3 overall pick or the veteran Jacoby Brissett. So probably not a great side to have those issues on. And we've talked so much about the left tackle position and what that's going to look like with either Chuks Okorafor or Caden Wallace. So it's not a great ideal setup to have there on the left side, but it was City So on OTAs. Nick Leverett and Layden Robinson were on the right guard position, which So held last year, but he's back to left guard where he naturally played in college. So I guess they seem to know, they obviously knew that Strange was going to miss some time, right? We heard even Elliot Wolf talked about it before the draft. We asked him about the offensive line, and he kind of left Cole Strange's name out of the equation. So now kind of looking back at this, maybe the Layden Robinson pick makes more sense, but do you wish they put more resources into maybe the guard position, maybe in free agency, that you have so much cap space? Maybe, I know a ton of guys sign big money, but maybe getting a guy who's maybe a little safer than Nick Leverett, right? Or maybe, tough to say go a higher guard in the draft, but do you wish maybe they approached the guard position a little differently now that, they knew kind of this whole time that Strange was going to miss a lot of time?
Not necessarily, just because they addressed it so heavily last year, and they have the bodies, they have the guys that they can bring in to compete at that position, that there were other needs on the roster. And I think overdoing it at guard, look, they signed, not household names, but two guys who have started multiple games in this league, and Nick Leverett and Michael Jordan. And then they, Layden Robinson's 103rd pick, fringe top 100 pick on a guard. So I feel like the assets are there, plus the top 3 or the 3 top 150 interior offensive linemen last year. They've spent a ton of capital at that position. So I'm okay that they didn't. Now, with Strange being where he is, do they maybe, because all these guys are unknown. So that's the thing. Like, you still don't have a clear answer. And maybe the fact that Strange will be back this year is why they didn't overly invest, because they feel like they have a starter for down the road. But, would I like to see them bring in a veteran just in case? I look at Justin Pugh's a free agent. He played for Ben McAdoo in New York, or a guy like Mike Lewinsky or Trey Turner. maybe bringing in a guy like that now, if nothing else, just for competition would make sense in camp. But I don't know how much further they need to go than that. They've invested a lot at guard.
Yep. Yeah, and you have, Mafe, Jake Andrews were the picks last year. Obviously, they weren't great in their rookie seasons, but, Gerard Maye was talking about you hope those guys can kind of put that year in the past, learn, grow, have a year two jump. So it looks like, City So is a hit, and now you have kind of three other guys you drafted in the third, fourth, fifth round there, and, a guy with experience, as you said, with Nick Leverett. So you hope, drafting all those guys at the guard position, you hope you can produce more than one starter in City. So if you can get one other starter, that's probably good business and a good way to kind of go about that guard position. But I guess just like, what's your confidence level? And let's start like confidence in Scott Peters, say this new offensive line coach. He's got Robert Kugler, Mike McCarthy helping him. What's your confidence level in that group to kind of, maybe have two new offensive linemen in here? We talked so much about the left tackle position. Just what's your kind of confidence with how that front's going to shake out?
I think they'll do, they did a decent job in Cleveland. And I don't think they're bad offensive line coaches, but now it just becomes a manpower issue. There's so many different players that need to be developed. I don't doubt this coaching staff's ability to develop offensive linemen in a bubble, but you've got two tackles you're working on moving from left to right. You've now got to figure out your starter at right guard. You're taking a guy who, yes, did play left guard in college, but was primarily a right guard last year, and moving him over to the other side. That you're taking Mike Onwenu, who's never really had a full offseason at right tackle, and you're fully drilling him at right tackle for the first time. That's a lot. So if it was one or two of those things, I'd feel pretty good about it. I know they have like three offensive line coaches, so they definitely set themselves up for this, but they are asking a lot of Scott Peters in that coaching group. They really are. They have put a ton on their plate.
Yeah. Well, the players say Scott Peters loves preaching positionalist players, so they're certainly taking that to a max with everyone but David Andrews basically playing a new position than they did last year full time. So it's certainly going to be a big thing to watch throughout. We have a few more spring practices, but then offensive line really comes under the microscope in the summer when you can get the pads on, obviously, and they start hitting each other one-on-ones and preseason games. So that's big. Number 3 quarterback, you have your future in Drake Maye. Even if he doesn't start the year, you don't want Jacoby Brissett back there running for his life. So the offensive line, as always, is going to be a big part of this, seeing how that comes together. But any other last thoughts there from Cole Strange, or how that offensive line shake out?
It's just, there's going to be a lot to watch come training camp. That's where I'm at with it. There's going to be a lot to watch because we just kind of laid it out there. A lot of moving pieces here. A lot of moving pieces.
Is this the end of Cole Strange?
I mean, the fact that they didn't add somebody that significant makes me think they're going to give him one more shot when he comes back. I think the idea that he's injury prone is maybe a little overblown. He played the full season his rookie year. Last year, he had the knee injury in camp, came back, played, and then got hurt again. So it's been two big things. It's not like, I guess two big things in 2 years, but I just think last year not having camp really hurt him. Yeah. And now this year, not having camp is going to really hurt him. He was already an older prospect. His development window was already shorter. I think he'll hang around in the league, but I don't think that he's ever going to justify that first round pick.
Yep. All right. Well, Cole Strange, again, expected to miss the start of the regular season, maybe be out until middle of the season. Expectation should be he starts the year on the PUP list. So we will take a quick break here from our friends over at Prize Picks, and we'll come back and do a little Q&A. So again, if you guys have questions about anything, all things Patriots, make sure to put that in the chat, and we will get to them right after Prize Picks. Very quickly, let's talk about our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks, which is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. You can get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money over on Prize Picks yet again, as you and the world's best players take on the game to a new level during the postseason. Playoffs begin tomorrow for our Boston Bruins and Sunday for the Boston Celtics at the Garden. But the play-ins, I believe there's one more play-in game tonight with the Bulls and the Heat, so you can get into the action early on that. There's something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. Just pick your athletes. Pick LeBron, he's still in there, or you can focus on the local guys, Jason Tatum, Jason Brown, Bruins goalies. I'm excited to pick more or less saves on the Bruins goalies. We'll see which ones are in net throughout the playoffs. They're still rotating, I believe. So head over to Prize Picks, download the app today, and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 over on Prize Picks. All right, let's get into some questions here. Start in that wide receiver room. Is Jalen Polk going to move around in Alex Van Pelt's scheme or stay at X? What do you think?
I think he's gonna move around, especially if they move on from Juju Smith-Schuster, because they're gonna have multiple roles that need filled. I actually think he's mostly gonna play Z, not X.
Yep.
I think that'll be either Javon Baker, or if Tyquan Thornton makes the team, he'll factor in there. But Polk's pretty versatile. I expect them to take advantage of that.
Yeah, looking at Cleveland the last few years, they put their best run blocker at the Z. They like getting that guy involved at the point of attack, and Polk has some pretty impressive run tape from Washington. He's not afraid to kind of get his hands dirty in that area. So I think he's going to be a really good fit in that kind of Z role. He can play some X, they can get versatile with it, but I think Z is kind of the main point for him. But what do you think Pop Douglas fits in all this in that wide receiver room?
I think he's just the slot receiver. I think that's what he is. And look, obviously he should be on the field a good amount. He's a good player, but at the same time, he's not the most durable guy. So I think even though you want him to be involved, I think keeping him heavily involved when he's on the field, but using him as the third receiver in 11 and maybe not him being as much of a part of 12 or 21 personnel makes some sense.
Yeah, probably more, third down work, obvious pass work. You probably don't want him on the field a ton when you're running the ball, but yeah, definitely he should still have a role in those pass situations. But staying in that room, DJ Cove is dreaming of next year with Maye spreading it out 5 wide with Polk, Baker, Pop, Jaheim Bell, and Marcus Jones giving defensive backs fits. Marcus Jones was asked about playing offense the other day. He said he's strictly defense, do what the coaches want. But who's your ideal 5 wide set coming into this season?
Yeah, and I wouldn't count on Marcus Jones playing much offense this year. I think you're looking at Polk at the Baker at the X, Polk at the Z, Pop in the slot, Henry as your tight end, Gibson as your running back. If you're just going to go and throw the ball, whether they're in 5 wide or not, I think that's your best grouping. If you're going to put Drake Maye in the shotgun and throw like they used to do with Brady.
Yep. I like getting Antonio Gibson in there. I was going to sneak him in. So
I meant to say him. Did I say him?
No, you said him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We talked about this, a bit. If Sal is left guard, right guard, probably looking at, Nick Leverett, free agent from Tampa Bay, Layden Robinson. They added Michael Jordan in the offseason, early in the offseason, and then, Mafi and Jake Andrews. If you just had a guess right now, do you have a leader in the clubhouse? Nick Leverett opened on Monday in OTAs, so maybe it's him. But if you had a week 1 guess, who would you go with?
I mean, I think it's going to be Nick Leverett, but I think it's going to be Nick Leverett and Layden Robinson. I think the battle ultimately comes down to those two. We just haven't seen enough of Robinson yet to really know. And they've been deferring to veterans early. But Antonio Mafi struggled last year. I still think Jake Andrews is a true center. I just don't know that he has the size or the power to play guard. So, yeah, I'm sticking with, I think it's between Leverett. If there's a sleeper, honestly, it's probably Michael Jordan.
Patriots back 30. And Mafi, we can just say he was playing center too. So maybe it takes him out of the right guard, how they view him there. But
that to me felt more like we need you to do as much as possible so you can make the team kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. We need a 5-minute Celtics minute. We will get to that at the end. How do we feel about the running back room? And would you give Ramondre Stevenson an extension? He's probably, I mean, maybe Matt Judon is next on the contract list, but Ramondre is probably up there. He's a free agent next year. Running back room, would you like another body? Like, it feels like they have Ramondre, they have Gibson. I like the 1-2, but after that, is there like a proven third back there? Like, maybe it's Kevin Harris, maybe one of the UDFAs. They liked one of them. Was it Terrell Jennings? They signed off a tryout, so they obviously like him. And then they have Deshaun Fenwick, so maybe one of those guys takes that job. But are you comfortable with kind of the top two and then a question mark at that third spot there right now?
Yeah, you can get a running back in August. Like, they got Zeke last year. I still want to see, like you said, like what can Fenwick give you? Can Kevin Harris kind of make that jump? I'm not super worried about where they're at running back at this point.
It's more of like a wait and see. Let the young guys have the preseason, and if it doesn't, then Matt Breed is going to be sitting there late in August. You can sign him, or
Yeah.
I don't know who else is out there. Kareem Hunt's out there. He worked with the staff, but I don't think the off field
No.
stuff
But there's also, like, I mean, guys get cut.
Yeah.
Somebody will be available. They'll be able to get a running back. I'm not super worried about that.
You can always find a back, but
yeah.
This is obviously the big one. We'll probably get this every show we do. Do you think Maye will start week one? Do you think he will perform well? He was third in the quarterback reps on Monday. It was, Jacoby, it was Bailey Zappi, it was Maye. That was true. Like, all positions, though, veterans were leading the way. So nothing really changed too much. Although when they did split at the end, it was one field was Jacoby and Drake Maye. The other field was Zappi and Joe Milton. So any change in your kind of timeline there for Drake Maye, and just do you think he'll perform well?
I mean, until they give me a reason to believe otherwise, it seems like that they're going to be really patient with him, and him being the third quarterback, like you said on Monday. I still use Halloween as kind of that benchmark. Like, I'd like to see him starting by then, and we'll see. The offensive line is going to be a big question. Are they going to give him the kind of protection that will allow him to play well? Because we just went through earlier, Brian, the issues that they have up front, and I'm worried about that group. I'm worried about that group undoing any other progress they make offensively, because they're just unable to get anything done in terms of protection or run blocking. You have legitimate questions now at essentially three spots, and one of the spots you feel pretty good about is a guy playing that position for the first time full time. So in terms of, like, will this player play well? Will Drake Maye play well in the regular season? It's way too early to say, because I think the offensive line is too much of a question mark right now to really be able to forecast that.
Yeah. I mean, my whole thing after he got drafted was they stressed competition, and I still think, Drake Maye's the most talented guy. So if he's out there slinging the ball in training camp, are you going to go away from that? But he's got to get the reps, first of all, to prove he's the talented guy, which he wasn't getting that much on Monday. Now, it seems like they want to kind of cut that room from 4 to 3 by the time training camp comes. So maybe that swings things. But I'm not kind of ruling it out that he starts week one, but I also do think they want to play this thing safe, especially with the offensive line troubles up front. But defense, what do you think happens to Matt Judon? He wasn't there Monday's practice. Gerard Mayo says he's been in and out of the facility all offseason, which is kind of status quo for him during his time in New England. But, $6.5 million left on his deal, no million guaranteed last year of his deal. He shouldn't play under that. He's a better player than what that contract is. So do you think he's kind of next up on the Elliott Wolf to-do list, to say?
We'll see. He's going to be an interesting one because he's an older player. I think he does have some value. We've talked about this. I hate the idea of something happening with him like happened with Gilmore, where they just basically never got anything done and they had to trade him during the season for nothing. At the same time, I wouldn't commit to him long term. He's in his 30s. He's probably not going to be an elite player by the time you're in your contention window again. But there is value in him as a leader and, keeping the team competitive in the meantime. They have all this cap space right now. I wouldn't pay him beyond 2025. You can pay a little more money, I think, to get a shorter term deal done. That's what they should do. But I wonder if they just get a 1-year deal done for this year and then they part ways after that.
Yep. Agree with that. But another guy who wasn't out there different reason, though. Kendrick Bourne, he's not participating in these spring practices as he comes back from that ACL injury. So Dexter asks, if he makes it back for the beginning of the season, how much can we really expect coming off that knee injury?
It's always tough to tell with these guys. Usually with the ACL, it's a year removed before you can really see where they're at. But I think that the thing about Kendrick Bourne is he's a competitor. He plays hard, and that's going to kind of help him bridge the gap. And they don't need a ton from him. Like, I think you can get from KJ Osborne similar to what you can get from him. Hopefully Jalen Polk gives them some of that. So they're in position to ease him back in. I think it's incredibly valuable. He's still there. He's in the room, all of that. But they don't, like last year, they needed him to be their best receiver. They needed him to be a 100-catch guy. He was on that pace, but it was the only way the offense was going to function. In theory, if they hit on their draft picks, you shouldn't need him to have to shoulder as much of a workload. That doesn't mean that the expectations are nothing. You still want to see him contribute, but he shouldn't be the number one receiver in this offense. Frankly, if he's a leading receiver in this offense, I think it means that they've made a mistake somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, you bolstered the top of that depth chart, so you don't need career year Kendrick Bourne, especially off the knee injury. You can kind of ease him into things there with the room how it is now, if those draft picks kind of develop as you hope they do. But another one offensively, is there a possibility that Jaheim Bell takes second tight end from Austin Hooper? Didn't see too much. I don't know. Did you have any takeaways from Bell on OTA Monday's OTA? It wasn't much.
He didn't do a ton. Yeah. Like most of the rookies, to be fair.
Yeah.
The thing about, he's not like he's not going to do the same things Austin Hooper does. He's not TE2, right? He's not the backup to Hunter Henry. He has a very unique skill set. He's going to be his own thing. It's going to be, proving he can fit his own role in the offense. And so it's not him against Hooper. It's just him when we get to camp, we'll talk about the at-large roster spots, right? The spots that are just going regardless of position, the best player. He's got to prove that in a unique role, he can be an impact player and make the team. I still think Hooper's here. I still think Hooper is essentially the backup tight end, but that doesn't mean he's going to play necessarily more than Jaheim Bell. I just think you need to think of Jaheim Bell outside of the construct of the rest of the depth chart.
Yeah, definitely going to be kind of a unique role for him there, not just your traditional tight end like Austin Hooper. Any candidates for breakout player this season? I don't know if Christian Gonzalez counts.
Yeah, does Gonzalez count? I mean, I think Gibson could be a really fun surprise. I think Antonio Gibson could actually come out and be a real impact player for them. And hopefully they do a better job this year of taking some of the workload off of Ramondre Stevenson, because we've seen him now get banged up late in the year, 2 years in a row. I'd go Gibson, actually. I think he could end up having a very solid season. Maybe not, I know people want to hear breakout, like, could Tyquan Thornton turn into something, or maybe this is Keon White or whatever. And I've talked about Keon White. I think he has a role as well. But I think if we're going to go with like the player people are the most surprised by, maybe doesn't have the biggest season, but I really think people are sleeping on Antonio Gibson. And I think he's going to be a factor.
Yeah. I've always had a soft spot for him from his rookie year fantasy football, so I've always been an Antonio Gibson fan. But he was pretty impressive on Monday. Obviously, the speed stands out in a no contact setting, but how they kind of moved him around, I think he could be a good fit, especially in kind of the zone offense or wide zone run offense with that speed. So I think that's kind of a good pick there. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Again, keep asking questions. We talked about the wide receiver room. How many wide receivers, how many corners do you think the Patriots will carry? Starting with receivers, I think, where are you at? 5 locked in? 5 with KJ Osborne? Obviously,
if we're considering KJ Osborne a lock, which I have been, yeah.
Polk, Baker, Kendrick Bourne, if he's healthy, Demario Douglas, and KJ Osborne, so that's 5. And then with all the guys they have, they're probably going to keep 6 if one of them can separate themselves between Tyquan, Juju, Kayshon Boutte, and Jalen Reagor. Are you on the same page there? And then what do you think for corners?
So yeah, I think it ends up being, I think they could end up keeping 6 receivers. I think there's a real chance that if it's Reagor, I think that 6 receivers going to be have to be somebody who plays on special teams. Corner, you're going to have Gonzalez, John Jones, Marcus Jones, right? So those 3, I think, are locks. Probably 5, unless somebody like Isaiah Bolden makes a push and can also play special teams and can also play some safety. It's tough to say because we also don't know what corner, like what the setup's going to be. Where's John Jones? Is he the slot corner? Is he the boundary corner? If he's not, is it Marcus Jones? It's Sean Wade. I don't think Sean Wade makes the team as like a reserve boundary corner. He can make it if they need that depth at slot corner. But if John Jones is going to start at corner and then at slot and then Marcus Jones, you're not going to really need a third slot corner in Sean Wade. But, depending on how they arrange it, he could be the guy that's in there. So wide receiver, I think, is probably 5, unless you want to count Rager, and might get to the point where it's like a Matthew Slater kind of thing, just as a returner rather than a coverage player. I think they could carry 6 true corners. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Especially because you'll have another thing, like you have less pure specialists. You don't have the Chris Boards. You don't have the Cody Davises this year. So those could be 2 positions they look to add.
Right.
Keep some extra bodies on. But what's your biggest worry on defense?
My biggest worry on
defense, that corner room?
It's that they're gonna put. I hate that they don't have a free safety. I hate that you're not going to be able to maximize both Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. And maybe I've seen some people say Marte Mabu can be the deep safety. He doesn't have speed for that. He doesn't. Maybe it's Jalen Hawkins. Maybe he comes in and saves the day. But I really hate that they have these 2 great box safeties and it just turns into, well, we don't need a deep safety because we'll just rotate them. Like, that's not maximizing your player's ability. I don't know if you saw, and I don't think they'll go to this extreme. Did you see the picture, Brian, that was going around Twitter over the weekend of it was a screenshot from Jabril Peppers, his rookie year in Cleveland, and how they were playing him? Like, it looked like a punt returner. I don't think the Patriots are going to play him that deep, but he brought up a good point. How do you watch his tape in college, and now how do you watch his tape with the Patriots and think that the best idea is to put him on the back end? He's a heat-seeking missile, and it just bugs me they're going to do that. Somebody in the comments said Justin Simmons. Did he sign? I thought he signed.
So.
No, he's not. Maybe at a meeting with somebody. I think he was like linked to the Titans. I think he had like a meeting or a visit or something with the Titans. But that still bugs me the most, is that they don't have a true plan at free safety. This defense is at its best when it uses a free safety, and I just wish they'd be a little more aggressive there.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love Justin Simmons still. I feel like we've been saying that since March 13th or whatever free agency began, but he'd be a great fit. So let's see what else we got here. Patrick thinks breakout player will be Keon Booty. Any hope for Booty there still? Had a nice diving catch on Monday from Drake Maye deep downfield, but I don't know, a lot of ground to make up in that wide receiver room with 11 guys there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Keon Booty. There's so much depth ahead of him. He struggled to get on the field last year. You have the whole legal thing pending. I think there's just too many roadblocks. I think there's just too many roadblocks for him truly making that push to a raw spot. They've talked about dependability and all that, and moving on from one of these receivers who, was brought in to kind of lead this program and be a part of this program. For a guy like Keon Booty, where that thing could blow up in your face, I just don't see them doing that.
Yep. He's also making the push for Marcus Jones at free safety. And then you can have Jonathan Jones back in the slot and Alex Austin or, Marco Wilson, Isaiah Bolden, one of those guys takes the second spot across from Gonzo.
Yeah, I don't entirely hate that, but like you really got to be a good tackler to be back there. And Marcus Jones, just because of his size, you worry about his tackling ability because you're the last guy, right? You're the last line of defense, literally. And this is something I know, like with Devin McCourty, the biggest adjustment for him when he started playing back there was you have to be a really good tackler. And I just wonder about Marcus Jones in that regard, just again, because of his size.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously small, so that's you got to tackle well. Jalen Hawkins, though, could be kind of intriguing. He seemed pretty involved.
To me, if it's going to be somebody, it's going to be Jalen Hawkins.
Yeah, wearing that old 32 jersey back there looked familiar. But yeah, he was pretty involved. He has that free safety background. Maybe that becomes something, but still plenty of time to work through this. Speaking of Marcus Jones, I guess this is kind of an interesting one because he was hurt last year. Do you think all these injuries are a problem? I know that, they changed up some stuff with their strength and conditioning staff this year. Duron Mayo, Gerard's brother's in charge now, but he was here last year. Do you think that's something that was an issue? I feel like this team's been pretty good years past, but last year's kind of an outlier, and it was mostly like some big names. So is that something that worries you at all going forward?
Not really. I think last year was a lot of freak football plays.
Yeah.
Like you said, they've done a very good job managing health. Hunter Henry was kind of the shining example of that. I also think there may be some guys last year that I don't want to say guys tapped out, but like you're not rushing guys back when you're a 3-win team in December. You're letting guys heal up. So there wasn't that necessarily urgency in bringing guys back last year as much as there maybe was in the past.
Yep. We'll do a few more here, then we'll get on to some Boston sports. Predictions on Josh Uche. Do you think they'll let him loose? Sounds like it. They keep preaching this more aggressive, defense, more turnovers, more aggressive up front. Christian Barmore said more 4-man fronts. So do you think that'll help Uche? And does he need Judon opposite of him to reach that ceiling? Certainly helps having Judon over there. But
yeah,
what do you think about Uche coming this year?
If they're really preaching more aggressive defense, which is what they've talked about, Josh Uche is that kind of player. I mean, he's forget contain, pin your ears back, go after the quarterback. That's how he plays. That is an aggressive style. If it really is going to be a more aggressive defense, there certainly should be, a bigger role for him. I think having Matthew Judon opposite him certainly helps because Judon's going to draw attention. But now you wonder if teams are going to test Judon coming off the injury at his older age. But I think you should see a bigger role for Josh Uche. He may not play that many more snaps, but I think you're going to see him be more impactful in the snaps he plays.
Yeah, he's not. Last year, it seemed like he really focused on trying to play more in the structure of the defense, right? Like setting the edge, being better run defender, where kind of 2 years ago when he posted the big sacks, it was more like pin your ears back and go. So hopefully you can kind of get back to that, and then that leads to the sack totals and more importantly, like the pressure totals. That's the one thing you're really looking for there. So he might still be like a 30-35% snap player, but if he's being able to play to his strengths and getting those pressures, that's what you're hoping for out of Uche this year. But we'll say last one here, staying on that defensive end room. Will Keon play DE in 4-3, or will he play behind our defensive tackle and Devon Godshaw? He was playing more stand-up on Monday, but they were down like every single off-ball linebacker on their roster Monday. So what do you think about Keon White's role in this defense?
I still think he looks bigger. I still think he's going to play hand down. I think on Monday it was just kind of a, we need the bodies. Let's give you a shot here, see how it feels. And I think he'll do some of both. But, with his play strength, with his physicality, I think his best is as a hand down 4-3 defensive end. I think the path for him ideally is ending up as the replacement for Dietrich Wise when the time comes.
Yeah, could definitely see that. All right, let's take one last quick break. We'll hear from our friends over at Game Time, and then we will wrap up with a quick Boston Sports Minute. Celtics are advancing, and if you want to go to a game, Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to kickoff. Kickoff. I'm getting ahead of myself here. They have flash deals, zone deals, last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buy-in last minute for sports. You can also use concerts, comedy, theater. I love, if you're in Boston, you can go get a slice at halftime or go to the Harp for a drink. And then right before tip-off, you can log on Game Time, get your tickets, get a really good deal. Go see the Celtics in the playoffs there. So take all the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Game Time. All right, Celtics squeaked out a Game 1 win, 5 points, OT. Seemed like a good Garden crowd on Game Time. They all used their Game Time app to get tickets, except for the fans who left early and had to watch across the street.
Fans.
who had to watch like through the window at the bars across the street. But you were there. So what's your game one Celtics takeaway?
That was as Celtics of a game as there is. It really was, where they come out hot, and then you think that, oh yeah, this is the team that's going to win the title. They completely fall apart, and then they snatch a win from the jaws of loss, right? And I think the big thing you look at is Jason Tatum, and he was having a really good game up until that fourth quarter. Completely falls apart in the fourth quarter. I mean, if Brown doesn't hit the corner three, all the conversation today is about Jason Tatum choking and Jason Tatum not being a clutch and not being up for the moment, not being ready to be a superstar. But Jaylen Brown hits the three, so Jason Tatum gets this extra chance, and then he goes off and he opens it up in overtime, right? So there's this debate of, does he deserve the credit for overtime or not? Because he wasn't guaranteed overtime. It was Jaylen Brown who got them there. He's just a very frustrating player. I still think he's one of the best players in the league, one of the best 5'10" players in the league. But he does need help sometimes. He does need help, and that's what Jaylen Brown is there for. And look, that's why the Celtics are a great team, because they have two of these guys. But I don't know how many of those are going to be able to survive from Jason Tatum. Like, he's got to be more of a finisher. That being said, I still think he had a great game last night.
Yeah,
I called it. I called it a Rorschach test game. You know what a Rorschach test is?
it's like you can see it however you kind of want to.
Yeah, it's the ink blots, like you see them do in the movies, right?
Yeah.
The psychologist, like, what do you see here, right? So to me, whatever you wanted to see from Jason Tatum, you saw. The people who are Tatum supporters will point to, the overall numbers in his performance in overtime. The people who are out on Tatum will point to what he did in the fourth quarter. Everybody got a little bit of what they want to see from him. And so, we just kind of move on from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great to see, him in overtime, Jaylen Brown, right in front of Drake Maye and Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
Big shot. Nice. Huge to see them step up. I just want to shout out Drew Holiday. That was an amazing game from Drew Holiday. It felt like, that defensive play in overtime where he basically just clamped Tyrese Halliburton, like made him break his own ankles. That kind of seemed like the dagger in a way on defense. So he was awesome, but probably need more out of Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard and the bench guys moving forward. Like, they weren't great, but your stars showed up and they kind of stole you a game there at the end. So especially in playoffs, especially in Eastern Conference Finals, you'll take them any way they come, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Like, at the end of the day, a win's a win in the playoffs. When you get to this point, I think you have to view it that way. Drew Holiday certainly lifted them his best game of the year, but they got to be better than that. If that's how they're going to play, this could be a long series.
Yep. The Peyton Pritchard, TJ McConnell matchup. That's fun. Even though TJ McConnell had his way in game one, that is a fun matchup. That those two guys are fun to watch going at each other.
Oh yeah.
Anything Bruins had their end of season takeaways today? I don't know. Did you pay attention to that at all?
Yeah, I saw. So they said that they want to try to add multiple, secondary scores, which is great. But how about adding some primary scoring on top of that? I think you need a second primary score with David Pastrnak. Brad Marchand's not getting any younger. Center, I think it's got to come at center. There has to be a marquee addition at center, and it sounds like Linus Ullmark wants to stay and they're open to keeping him, but I don't know, man. For the money and all of that, I would try to move him. And they got a ton of good goalies in the pipeline. I would try to move him either for a player or even just to, get a prospect and open up the money to go get somebody in free agency.
Yeah. Yeah, you need that money. You got to put that money into, hopefully a top six winner or center. You just can't
really a center. They're okay on the wing. Like, if you can get an elite scoring wing, I'm not going to say no.
The issue is there's not many. It's not a great center free agent market outside of Elias Lindholm, who might get like extremely overpaid because he is the only top like center on the market. But yeah, you got to use that money up top, or like maybe trade him for a draft pick and then, flip that draft pick for a player that can help you. Like, you got to get creative. You can't have, Don Sweeney was yelling at Ty Anderson for negotiating for Swayman. It's like, you can't have the 12 to 14 million logged up on the goalie position this year. But, yeah, Montgomery, he said he'll be back too. So I think this is the last year of his deal. So
that's going to be interesting because they've obviously underperformed late in the season. I feel like he's got to really prove something this year. Obviously, he's in the last year of his contract, but lame duck coach is always a little bit risky.
Yep.
And that's going to be an interesting storyline when the season starts next year.
If they remodel this roster, like in a way they feel really confident about, and it's visible on the ice, and they still can't get out of the first or second round, then you might seriously have a conversation there.
I think you have to have a good hard look at that point.
Yeah. Especially if it's like the two things with him, it always seems to be he'll make a weird personnel move that's not necessarily. He did it this year. After I think it was game 1 in Florida, and then like he did it last year in the Florida series, and then like
he's got no feel.
Yeah, and then the overall like message to the team about like the pucks on net. Well, that was a big thing this year. Like we're not a volume shooting team, while every player says we got to get more pucks on net. So I don't know. That could be kind of an interesting watch with him if he doesn't get an extension beforehand. But also seems like Jake DeBrusk is gone, which kind of too bad. Unless he gets like extremely overpaid on the open market, doesn't seem like he's going to be back. Which I'd bring him back if the price was right, but doesn't look like it's headed that way. But we'll see there. Jonathan Marchessault, he's a Bruin from Vegas. He's taking his spot. Get ready for it.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about that.
Yeah, Conn Smythe winner. That wouldn't be a bad replacement. But any Red Sox thoughts, or we can wrap this one up?
I mean, so the Red Sox this year have been, they beat the teams that are over under 500. They lose the teams that are under 500. They've got a 13-game stretch here. They're off tomorrow. They wrap up against Tampa tonight. So I think it's 13 games included tonight, where 10 of the 13 are against teams over 500. And then we'll see with Detroit. They're right around 500 right now, but they play them as well. And that all leads up to a series with the Yankees in early June. If the Red Sox are going to prove that they're going to hang around and they're going to make some noise and they're going to give us a real baseball summer, I think you don't have to sweep the next 13 games, but making a push, can they win 7 of the 13, something like that, I think would go a long way in proving that they are, when I say for real, I don't mean, a true World Series contender, but they're a team to be taken seriously.
Yep. You're contending for a wild card spot in late August. That's right. That's what we want out of our baseball team right now. That's what we're looking for. All right. Yep. We'll wrap it up there. We'll be back next week. We have OTAs Wednesday, so we'll probably have a show before and then our OTA recap show at some point next week. So make sure you are locked onto the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you do know when we go live. In the meantime, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com to read his written Boston coverage over there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines and head over to patspulpit.com to read my written Patriots coverage on there as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in with us today. Have a wonderful rest of the week and weekend, long weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and we will see you guys next week.